Hey there, I'm Rachel at Journey Back Quilts, and today we're going to be journeying back to the basics. We're going to be making half square triangles 2 at a time. Let's get started. For these half square triangles, making them 2 at a time, I have 2 pieces of fabric, a light blue and a dark blue. You can use whichever colors you want. It's traditional to use a dark color with a light color, that way you have some contrast to it. I have mine measured at 4¼ inch square to make these 2, and they're going to finish at 3½ inches before we put them in our quilt. Once they're all sewn, that ½ inch is going to shrink to be 3 inches square total. Okay, so I'm going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner, just like we did on the lesson 1. Remember to have your ruler off the corner just a touch so that your marker is hitting the corner. Otherwise, your line will be off centered just a little bit. Now, if your fabric is directional with a right side or wrong side, you want to make sure you put your right sides together. We're just going to match up those sides. And now we're going to sew on either side of this line at 1/4 inch. So in lesson 1, we sewed right on the line. This time we're going to sew off of the line at 1/4 inch, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's go to the sewing machine. All right, this time I have my 1/4 inch seam guide foot on here, and this bar is a great guide because I can set that bar right on my line and my needle will be 1/4 inch away from my line perfectly. So that's what I'm going to do. Lift the foot, place that bar right on the line. Now, if you don't have a 1/4 inch guide foot, you can use a Seam Sew Easy tape like I have on here, and you're just going to line up your corner with that line at the bottom. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it'll be this corner right here on the side instead of the center like we did last time. Okay, now we're going to stitch 1/4 inch away from that line all the way down, and I'm just going to sew right off my block. Okay, so I've sewn off my block. I'm going to lift my foot and leave it attached to the machine so I still have some thread here. Just pull it out and then readjust it so we're going down the other side. This way we're saving on thread by chain piecing this one block. Now you can chain piece all of your blocks if you're going to make several of these that are 2 at a time. You'll just sew down one side of all of your blocks and then spin them around and sew down the other side. But since I'm just making this one 2 at a time block, I'm going to show you this way. All right, so let's go back to the ironing board. And like in lesson 1, we're just going to set the seam by ironing it flat. That's going to help all those fibers that might have gotten squinched up with our sewing to lay back flat before we trim it. Now we're going to trim these apart right on that line that we drew, which will be 1/4 inch away from both of our seam lines. And here we have 2 half square triangles. So let's iron those towards the dark side or open, whichever you prefer. So remember, I'm going to put the light side of the fabric on my ironing board so that the seam is sitting on the dark side. As I peel that over, it's going to be sitting on the dark side. And I like to use my clapper here, which helps take the heat away from my fabric, and it really helps make them flat. I like working with really flat blocks, but I don't want to necessarily use steam, water, or starch on my fabric unless I have pre-starched or pre-washed my fabric. Otherwise, it may shrink my block. So using this is a way I can get them flat without using those materials. Okay, so now let's trim them up. So we're going to put the diagonal of our ruler on the diagonal of our block, just like in lesson 1, same exact steps. And we're going to make sure that we're going to trim these to 3½. So we need to make sure our 3½ line has fabric on the outside of it a little bit so that we can trim all 4 sides. So I'm going to do these 2 and then rotate it all the way around. Now these are the 2 sides I just trimmed. So now I can line up my ruler with 3.5 on this side and 3.5 at the bottom. And my diagonal should still be on the diagonal of my block. Remember, one smooth motion cutting, no pizza cuttering, and hold your ruler firmly so that it doesn't slip on you. Let's do that to this other one. Did you catch the no-no I just did? I didn't close my rotary blade as I set it down. That's something you want to get in the habit of, is always closing your rotary blade before you set it down. Because there are so many times where if you forget, you may grab it or move it and that blade is so sharp, it just cuts right through you. So be very careful about that. All right, there we go. We made 2 half square triangles. Super fast, super easy. I hope that you enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today in making half square triangles 2 at a time. I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. If you would like my cheat sheet on how to get your dimensions the right dimensions for your certain quilt, I invite you to join us in Journey Back Quilts Society, where you can learn even more tips, tricks, and tutorials. You'll just click on that link below and join us today. Next week, we're going to be learning how to make half square triangles 4 at a time. I'll see you then.